Good evening and welcome to the Maple Plains City Council meeting. It is Monday, June 24th at 7 p.m. and I'm calling the meeting to order. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I am looking for a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Francis,
Second.
second by Burek. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries 5-0. First item of business tonight is visitors to be heard. Before we do that, I just want to remind everyone about Maple Plains City Council public comment expectations and guidelines, just to be respectful, to keep it to 3 minutes or less. And if it's something that you've already spoken on, we ask that you not speak on it again. And for full print, there's back on the table, but we'll just be respectful adults and all will go well. We have 3 people tonight for public comment. Looks like Lou, if you want to come forward to the mic and please state your name and address. And just a reminder that we will not be giving answers tonight.
I understand it. I have given you a letter that recaps what I've got here. I'm representing my son who lives at 1755 Howard Avenue. Is this better?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I live at 1666 Howard Avenue, and I just moved in last September. I love this city. But we have a water problem. My son has a repeated water problem. On my recap that I handed to you, I identified the problems, the history from the beginning when he first bought the house in 1998, and he had no problems. Then there was a remodel of the home. There was no water problems. They had children playing in the backyard, no problems. There was a problem in the northeast basement with water, and Chuck Sutherland repaired it. Problem solved. Then you put the street improvement in, and the water began to flood into his yard, slowly seeping, and now it is just sponge. And the drain seems to come somewhat from Memorial Park to the playground, to the ballpark, to the school, the whole area. And I have been informed that we aren't quite sure who owns the property. John did put in, his basement's flooded. Last year, when we had a drought, the sump pump still ran. And it wasn't constant running, but it was continual. And so they're all through the summer. On the 1st of May, he left a telephone voicemail with the city engineer, got no response. On the 22nd, he had a letter to the city government employees and council members that there was a problem that exists, and he wanted to know if there was some way that we could have that discussion. No response. The rains came, his basement flooded, and he's not happy. But he's got kids, and they're trying to be responsive to what their needs are as well. But the rain also flooded one of the children's bedrooms. Me, mother, miffed because I have lost time with children and grandchildren. So I went to the city hall and met Jacob, and he acknowledged that he had received the letters, but does not know the legal ownership of the playground property. Knows that the Memorial Park has a water problem, and the anticipated rain garden will hopefully solve that problem for Memorial Park. So the city engineer, he notified the city engineer who arrived at John's house the following Monday. And he gathered information that he could present to the council for what needed to be done. John's expectation is that there'll be a pipe or something, some sort of thing right to the whatever collects the water at the baseball field or the field or whatever. I suggested that my thoughts were that the rain garden exists in Maple Plain, all around Haven Homes. It's beautiful. And indeed, there are rain gardens throughout Minnesota. And a rain garden is nothing more than a glorified ditch. And but it does filter water for our aquifers, and we would do a lot to having more rain gardens in our community would solve a lot of our rain runoff problems, because it creates a ditch-like area where water collects and settles out. It doesn't flood the whole area. But we are anxious to hear what the recommendations of the city engineer is, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming forward, Lou. And I will say I have been, your son and I have been playing phone tag, so we have been trying to get in contact. And I do know there's been appointments with the engineer, and there is a meeting currently scheduled with public school staff as well. So we don't have any recommendations at this time because we don't have all the information. All right, next public comment this evening is Judy Sutherland. So Ms. Sutherland, invite you forward. Please state your name, address.
Judy Sutherland, 4865 Main Street, East Maple Plain. I just have a comment about the last meeting, and it's nothing against collision corners. Chuck and I use them for all of our trucks. We like the business, but I don't understand how they miss the deadline getting papers in, and you give them time and time again to get their act together. And John, you were adamant, give them the time, but they better not add anything to it. They handed it in half an hour before the meeting, so they've had 2 weeks. If they went by what was on that, I'm assuming it wasn't complete. I'm hoping nothing got added, and my comment is just, I don't understand why the 2 weeks are given when they never followed the rule to begin with. And I don't want to see them leave, but we'd have to follow the rule, you'd have to follow the rule, and there they are, given 2 more weeks when they came half an hour before to give you papers. That's my only comment. I just was really shocked, sad. But it is what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sutherland, for coming forward. One more person for public comment tonight, Mr. Andrew Santinetti. Please come forward.
Yeah, my name's Andrew Santani. I'm from 7171 Ohms Lane in Edina. I'm representative of Cassia. Needed to take the opportunity to, as a representative of the pending sale to River Oaks, represent the organization and our displeasure of the work with the city, our organization's disappointment in the management of the conditional use permit application submitted on January 3rd. After nearly 6 months, the city has only been able to draft a denial letter, which you guys have in your packet tonight, to the CUP request. This comes with no recommendations from staff, planning, or council, and still has no conditions to be fulfilled. In addition, it also includes no acceptable number of emergency calls by fire and police departments. In addition, it's called out on page 5, section 17 of the pre-drafted denial letter in your packet tonight, that there are outstanding conditional use items that the applicant is still waiting for confirmation from the council and planning to be issued. So it reads as though they've done nothing, but they've been doing nothing but waiting for confirmation. Furthermore, the position of call volume we believe to be misguided. Development is driven by demand, and River Oaks is here because there is a demand for their services in this area. If development was established by emergency service staffing, then the country itself would be on pause for its overall growth and development. Under these terms, how can any care provider purchase our current property? When given the opportunity to openly discuss these challenges with the applicant on May 22nd, nobody in this room, planning or council, wanted to collaborate with the River Oaks team. Representatives from River Oaks came ready with data in hand to seek solutions to the over decade-long staffing shortage to the Maple Plain emergency response teams. To collaboratively address these concerns together, River Oaks was allowed their 3 minutes at this podium, and all ideas to find solutions were quickly abandoned. And now we're here on the verge of a crossroads. We have a facility at 1520 Wyman and 5515 Bryant that need life back in them. But a vote to deny the CUP today will not change the fact that the building is designed to house 60-plus people, and that the residents, 60-plus residents in the emergency services in Maple Plain are still understaffed. The change to assisted living leaves only one use for this building, and you are currently holding a denial resolution for an application that meets that very criteria. So I leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Santetti. Having no other visitors to be heard this evening, we will now welcome to the podium our guest speakers tonight, Representative Kristen Robbins with the legislative update.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I appreciate you having me here tonight. I just wanted to give you a brief update now that the legislature has adjourned for the year. And it was a bit chaotic at the end. I'm sure you've all followed that. And one of the things that is most important to our communities in the western suburbs was the bonding bill, and that did not get through. So it is my hope that we will, even though next year's a budget year, not a bonding year, I'm hoping we will still take up a bonding year next year as well. And our thoughts and prayers are all, we were talking in the audience with the city of Mankato. They are facing a huge crisis with a dam down there. And if there is even more significant problems down there, then we've heard talk of a special session. So I don't know how that will impact other bonding projects, but clearly as a community, as a state, we're all very concerned about Mankato, and this is why, just timely continuing bonding dollars in our communities really matters for upkeep. A couple good things we got done this year that I'm very thankful for and that I worked hard on were getting the SROs back in schools. And then also something we've worked on for 6 years was to get straw purchases declared a felony in state statute so that law enforcement has more tools in that situation. A couple disappointing things were the paid family leave bill that was passed last year. They did an actuarial study last fall, and that was shown to be at the 0.7% that was passed in the bill last year was shown to be inadequate. The actuarial study suggested 0.96 was needed to make the program solvent. And this year, the legislature increased the tax to 0.88% of payroll. So our communities will, as the city, as school districts, as employees, employers, everyone will have to pay that tax. And my concern is that the 0.88 is still not adequate to create a solvent program. So I'm hoping we can still continue to work on this when we go back next session. A couple other things. There was some small changes in education, trying to help with the literacy program. A small program I got done, a couple things specific to our district I got done was it really affects residents on this side of the district where the DNR was charging $2,000 for people to cross the loose line and get a certificate of egress from the DNR. And I mean, when I heard about it from different residents, like, it's crazy, right? so we were able to get in statute that they're no longer allowed to charge that. And so if you are, or anyone watching was in that situation where you were sent a letter from the DNR, that situation has resolved and you will not be charged for that. And you can still apply for the certificate of easement. I work closely with our fire chiefs in our district. Specifically, they were kind of the leaders on this to get the exemption from the Earn Sick and Safe Time bill for paid on-call firefighters. That came up in a meeting we had last fall. And Maple Plain Fire was really a leader in bringing that to our attention and working with Dolly and others to make sure that we got that exemption. It will really help city budgets, and it will also help make sure they can meet their training requirements. So I feel like that was a big win for us. A couple small things I worked on was getting limits to cannabis advertising targeting kids or displaying alcohol. And also for assisted living facilities, there was some concern raised by constituents about when a correction order is issued, that the family is not necessarily given the information of how that was resolved, or even the resident themselves. And so now we have our requirement in statute that once the correction order has been addressed, the family and the resident must be given access to how it was addressed. So hopefully those things will help. Just small items that weren't some of the big ticket items, but I think these are small wins for our community based on ideas constituents brought to me. So does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Representative Robbins?
Well, thank you all for your time. I'm working every day, so even though we're not in session, if there are issues for the city or for constituents, please please reach out. I'm here, and I want to keep doing whatever our communities need. So thank you.
And thank you for your partnership and for your advocacy on behalf of all the cities in your district. Next, we'll hear from Wendy Lunsgaard. Wendy is our owner school board representative, and she's here to give us a school district update.
Great. Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to share some updates from the year. It was a very, very busy year, and just time for some quick highlights. We had more students and teams going to state for athletics than in the history of the school, which was really exciting. We had an excellent year in our fine arts with many students going on to national and international competitions and receiving awards of excellence. We also had drama as well, the drama club, not the drama club, and our fall and spring performances with sold out shows, first time in history, and our students going on to showcases in Minneapolis and receiving a lot of specialized awards as well as honorable mentions. So it was a really exciting year for students. We had graduation was fantastic. Many students with I think it was about $84,000 in local scholarships, which is really exciting. And our students are doing really well. We also negotiated with all of our teachers, all of our paras and kitchen staff and everybody successfully, and we have a really good relationship with everyone at the school, between the administration, the staff, and the school board. So we feel really positive about that. A highlight of the year is the strategic planning, which I know I talked about in the fall. And Mayor Moskowski and I were able to have some unique perspectives into the strategic planning. It was very much a priority of the school board and staff to have community input in this strategic planning. This is an 18-month process that has been going on. It is now moving on to the implementation phase. So through the 18 months, over 1,000 community members touched the strategic plan in some way. And community members were given a variety of ways to interact with the strategic planning, whether it be through a survey. Students were surveyed, staff, parents, community members. There were community conversations held at each individual school as well as the Early Childhood Center. There were 4 recent grad focus groups. And then to take all that information, a core planning team of 31 members that represented all the communities that funnel into Orono schools, ranging from parents to past parents to community members who don't have kids in the school to staff to school board members. All of them were represented to provide feedback, revisions, discussion, to take all that information and put it into a working document that is alive and well. So the school district will be communicating with families throughout the summer and fall, and the new updated strategic plan should be posted by the end of the summer. I think they're just working on some formatting right now. And I would say the final would be that there is construction, a lot of construction happening all over the state, the city, but also at the school, not just the roads from the county, but at the buildings themselves. A lot of updates that need to happen. We have buildings that are over 25 years that need updated HVAC, updated security. So all of that is going through. Our Finance and Facilities Committee has been very diligent this year in rebuilding our fund balance that was stripped during COVID. And so finding ways to be as conservative as we can. We were able to increase our fund balance modestly this year. But the hope is that we will be paying off all of our debts before going out to the voters for any more money in the near future. And we will also continue to increase that fund balance. And that concludes my report. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Lunsgaard? All right.
Thank
Thank you
you.
too for being here and for the partnership between the cities and the school. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right. Next, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Before I ask for a motion to approve that, I would like to remove letters A, B, C, and D and table those till July. So, do we need a motion to do that? Yeah. So I'm looking for a motion to pull letters A, B, C, and D and table them until our July meeting.
I would make that motion, but also include pulling E.
Till July?
No, I want to pull that for later.
Oh, to discuss.
You can pull the other ones to July. I'll pull E
Alright.
to off the consent agenda.
Okay, so the amended motion would be table A through D and pull E for discussion. Okay, so we have a motion.
I'll second that.
So a motion by Councilmember DeLuca, second by Councilmember Francis. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So since we pulled letter E, Councilmember DeLuca, we will start with that one on page 12.
Are we approving the consent agenda then? That would just be F?
Yep.
Or how do you,
Yep.
what would you like first? Discussion on E?
We'll do E, yeah, we're going in
Okay.
order.
I pulled that one to have a discussion about results contracting. I can't tell from the permit what they are peddling, and I cannot tell if they've paid their fee. I think before I make a decision about letting somebody peddle in the city, I'd like to know what it is they're peddling.
Okay, I'm going to turn that over to staff. Administrator Colander.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Councilmember DeLuca. It's a very good point. There are some empty spots. In reviewing some of these solicitor permits, we've found that there's some changes that we need to tweak on these forms. But I can tell you this is a roofing company. They want to come in and go door to door, see if people need roofing repairs. As far as the fees, typically we would collect a $50 background check fee up front and then the $100 licensing fee after approval. I failed to get the $50 background check fee from him, so I'll get that when they come back to pay for the licensing fee if we do the approval for it.
Okay, but we did the background check.
Correct.
So,
Out of order. Next time I won't do that, but
Is there a period certain on this? I mean, the dates of solicitation are foreseeable future.
correct. And I will talk with them about that. So, and that's one of the things I want to add to this form. So our city code says that a peddler solicitor's permit is good for 10 days, unless extended by the city council. It is only good Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., no Sundays at all. That's obviously not reflected on this form as well, so it would be something I have to go back to them and discuss with them as well.
Would it be more appropriate to perhaps go get all that information and bring this permit back to us when it is done and correct? And I too, John, saw foreseeable future seems like a little bit of an undefined period, knowing what the code said.
As a roofing and siding contractor, though, if this waits until July's meeting, they've lost more than half of the summer.
And if, sorry, were you done?
No,
Okay,
I
go
just
ahead,
want to
finish.
say we're kind of hurting them. I mean,
If you look on page 13, the end of the application, it does say, have you read and do you understand Chapter 4, Article 13 of Maple Plain City Code? So it has what Administrator Colander has already talked about, and they're agreeing that they've read it, so they should know all of these things. Although I do agree, I think it would also be good to reiterate it clearly in the application as well. So nothing should be as a surprise, because they're saying that they read it and they know. Any further discussion on solicitor's permit for Results Contracting? Okay. So looking for direction with that.
well, I'll make the motion to approve it as long as they are aware of the,
We will make them aware.
and then they pay their fees.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so there's a motion by Councilmember Fay to approve, and to make sure that they are aware of their fees and the guidelines.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Councilmember Burek. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approving as is?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 4-1. Next item of business this evening, the only item left on our consent agenda is solicitor's permit Frost Factory. So with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Francis,
I'll second that motion.
second by Burek. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next item of business this evening is number 8, accounts payable, and I will turn that over to staff on page 18 in our packets.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Our bills for the month of June, our AP batch comes to $253,896.92. Our ACH payments were $13,159.39. I did have a few questions that were asked, so I'll go over them with you guys real quick. There was a question on the Adams Pest Control bills. There's 2 of them. There are 2 different months that we're doing in June. One of them was May. The Health Partners under the ACH batch, the $1,563, I believe it was, is the normal payment. There's another larger payment that includes the addition of Kevin into the insurance cover, the additional coverages that were not previously billed in April or May. So those will even out. So we'll just see the $1,575.63 going forward. Excuse me. The other one that was on there for the Elon Financial Services, it was listed that there was $30 and $41.24 that wasn't listed for mayor's breakfast in the comments. Those comments are actually incorrect. It was for the city cleanup. So just clarifying on that. And I think that was all the questions that I received.
Okay, any questions for staff regarding accounts payable that were not answered?
I saw a duplicate in the Gertens. There seemed to be steel moto mix that was there, and then another one about 5 lines down. Was that a multiple purpose or a double entry?
What page are you on, Councilmember DeLuca?
24.
Thank you.
Those would be different dates. So same product, just different dates. That was purchased for the chainsaw.
Any other questions for staff regarding accounts payable? All right, then we are looking for 2 motions. One to approve the city check batch for $253,896.92.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Burek,
Second.
second by Councilmember Francis. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the city check batch signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next, I'm looking for a motion to approve the fire check batch, $13,159.39. Excuse me, Administrator Colander has something.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, that's the city ACH batch, so it includes all
Oh.
the fire stuff as well.
Sorry. Let me rephrase that. I am looking for a motion to approve the city ACH check batch for $13,159.39.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Fay,
I'll
Second.
second that.
second by Councilmember Burek. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Alright. Next item of business before us this evening is staff reports. Those have all been submitted in writing. If anyone does have any questions, we have administration, planning, and legal here tonight. Anyone need any questions? Anything they want to share? Okay, with that, I'm looking for a motion to receive all staff reports as submitted, letters A through F.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember DeLuca.
Second.
Sec-
John.
Second by Burek. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next, we'll move on to new business. And I am looking for a motion to table letter A, resolution 24-06, 24-1 to transfer of funds. Looking for a resolution to table that until July.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Fay.
You want to explain why?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I asked that we table this item. Having some conversations with John and figuring out some of the donation stuff, there was a couple that that I did not have included in here, and I want to find where they're at in the accounting system so I can get an accurate number when we make this first transfer. So I'll find that and bring it back to the July meeting so it's accurate.
And then we're doing it once.
Yeah.
So, sorry, good idea to explain. All right. We need to vote on that. Get a motion and a second,
We
right?
need a second.
Oh, we need a second.
I did the first.
Oh, okay, second.
Fay first, Francis second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries 5-0, so we'll come back in July. Next is to look at resolution 24-06, 24-2, the creation of the City of Maple Plain Rebranding Committee. And before we turn this over to staff, Just want to talk about, it has been acknowledged ahead of time that the committee assignments in the packet was an old one. So we're just looking at the rebranding committee, not the list that is in the packet we're working from. Just that clarification before I turn it over to staff. So, all right, Mr. Larson.
The city staff is looking for the approval of the resolution to amend the council appointments to include a committee for rebranding, specifically with the objectives to design the city logo that brings out the identity of the city, design consistent standards for signage and imagery used throughout the city, and also choose a platform to redesign the city website.
So with that, we are looking for a motion for Resolution 24-06-2402 to amend the city committee assignments to include adding Councilmember Francis and myself, Mayor Moskowski, and to the formation of the new committee of the rebranding committee.
I would only ask the question, how did it become you and Connie?
That was decided at a workshop and then through discussion.
Must have missed that one.
I'll make that motion.
I guess I'll second that motion, since I don't think you two are gonna wanna make a motion for yourself.
All right, so the motion was by Councilmember Burak, the second was by Councilmember Fay. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, next, we will move on to item C, Resolution 24-06-24-3, the CUP application, denial for River Oaks, and I will turn that over to our planner, Mr. Voltis.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, Council. This item is coming back before you after being considered at previous meetings of both the Planning Commission and City Council, and then following a special City Council meeting that was held in May to further discuss the item. The applicant had applied for a conditional use permit and site plan review to allow the reuse of the existing building located at 1520 Wyman Avenue for assisted living on that property and within the existing building. The property itself is zoned R1 single family residential. It's guided by the city's comprehensive plan as low density residential. There's two parcels that are included with that property. One is 2.53 acres, that's the north parcel, and the other is the south parcel, it's 0.99 acres. The city has considered this application, and prior to consideration of tonight's meeting, the city had considered an amendment to the zoning ordinance that would clarify and actually then make a conditional use assisted living within the R1 zoning district. Prior to the adoption of that amendment, there was some clarification really needed in the ordinance to determine whether or not that particular use and really the modern portion of that particular use would be permitted within the R1 zoning district. So the amendment that was approved by the city recently made that a possibility by allowing assisted living facilities as a conditional use. That then allowed the city to therefore consider the subsequent application that the applicant had made for a conditional use permit. All conditional use permits also require site plan review for the city. So with that, the city discussed the possibility of approving a conditional use permit and then the site plan review for the reuse of that existing facility. And just to recap quickly, I know we've talked about it, the applicant is proposing that the facility be essentially interior renovated on the inside primarily to accommodate up to 61 assisted living beds in that building. Previous use of that building was a little bit different. It was used for assisted and independent care and had 69 total beds in the building historically. And just to note, it's approximately a 45,000 square foot, one-story building. With that the city made assisted living a conditional use now in the R1 zoning district, and the city adopted several criteria that are specific to assisted living. But on top of those criteria, the city also has the standards for consideration of granting a conditional use permit, which are spelled out in the ordinance. And so in order for the city to make a positive finding, you'd have to make a finding that not only the criteria specific to assisted living are being adequately satisfied by the applicant, but you'd also have to make the finding that the criteria or the considerations for granting a conditional use in general are being satisfied by the applicant. The city held a special meeting in May to talk about some of the concerns raised by public safety and the ability of the city to serve that facility with public safety. And it was discussed that the applicant operates similar facilities, or what they categorized as similar facilities to that which was being proposed in this building. And so staff, specifically West Hennepin Public Safety and Maple Plain Fire, along with administration and myself, had reached out to some of the other cities and then some of the other emergency service departments that provided services to those facilities that were deemed to be similar. And that was the majority of the conversation that was held at the special meeting. And it really was revolved around the notion that the city does not have adequate emergency services, which really leads into adequate facilities to be able to mitigate the demand that would be placed on the city by the proposed use of this building. What was also noted in that, and it's noted in the language of the resolution, is that the applicant and their proposed use of that building is substantially different than what would be considered the normal, or what we've experienced in the city and surrounding cities as normal kind of volumes and emergency services needed to support the type of facility, an assisted living facility. They have a model, and they have a they run a different type of assisted living, and it was, as you saw by the numbers, substantially different than what had historically been in that facility, and or what would be considered to be within kind of the standard of practice of that definition, assisted living. So with that said, the city council at that special meeting had directed staff to prepare a resolution. The city attorney and I worked on that resolution and provided that in the packet. As was noted by the applicant earlier tonight, the Planning Commission did not make a recommendation relating to the ordinance amendment, therefore couldn't make a recommendation on the subsequent conditional use or site plan review application, but the city council has considered it on multiple occasions and has the ability to act on the resolution. We also included just we included the denial resolution as directed by staff, or by council. Happy to go into as much detail again on this, as there's more that we've talked about at previous meetings, but with that, I'll just yield for questions.
Any questions for our planner or staff? Then with that, we have a resolution before us, Resolution 24-06, 24-3, the CUP application denial for River Oaks, and looking for a motion.
How do you want to rephrase that? Make a motion to deny the application?
Motion to approve the resolution denying.
Approve the resolution
Oh.
to deny the application?
Right, 'cause
the
I will make
resolution-
that motion.
Thank you for that correction. Okay, so there's a motion. Looking for a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Councilmember DeLuca. Does this need to be roll call vote? Any further discussion or questions? Is this the one that needs to be roll
Yes.
call, Administrator Colander? So I'll
Yes.
turn the meeting over to you at this time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A motion by John Fay, seconded by Mike DeLuca, calling for a roll call vote. Andrew Burek,
Nay. Or for the resolution, sorry.
to approve.
To approve the resolution, yes.
Mayor Moskowski
Aye.
and Connie Francis.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
All right, next item of new business this evening is letter D. This is the IUP application for Collision Corner, and I will turn this back over to our planner as well.
Great, thank you. Honorable Mayor, Council, this item's also been considered by the City Council. At a previous meeting, I was directed to come back to the June 24th meeting for further consideration. The property 5060 US Highway 12 has made application for an interim use permit. Similar to conditional use permits, all interim use permits are accompanied by site plan review. The particular property in question is zone mixed use gateway. It's guided by the city's comprehensive plan as mixed use. It's approximately 0.9 acres in overall size. As council knows, the applicant and the city entered into a settlement stipulation agreement which provided details and more delineation relating to the proposed use of the property and then the interim use of the property, so the consideration for an interim use permit. Along with that, the settlement agreement provided details relating to the site plan, particularly parking of vehicles, storage of vehicles, and then requisite striping and landscaping of the site in accordance with that agreement. So at the last meeting, it was noted that the city had not received a plan in accordance with the terms of the stipulation agreement. The city asked the applicant to provide a plan and gave until tonight's meeting to have that completed. Following the meeting, staff did discuss the site plan with the applicant as well as with the applicant's engineer. And we looked at several then iterations to try to meet the terms exactly of the settlement stipulation agreement. And a plan was completed by the applicant, reviewed by staff. It was noted tonight by one council member that there's a question on whether or not there's one space on Boundary Avenue that meets the definition of angled, or as stipulated in the agreement, angled. Outside of that, it appears that all other aspects of the settlement agreement as it relates to the site plan were satisfied by the plan that's included in the packet. And that includes the parking spaces and the landscaping that's shown on the plan. With that, the city did provide a resolution that would be approving the interim use permit, and also a resolution denying the interim use permit, as no direction was provided at the last meeting related to either of those specifically. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding any of the information provided, either historically or updated.
Mark, you're comfortable with the application at this point? And I see the approval has a July 1st, which is a week from today. Is it realistic to think that the applicant can meet that July 1st date?
I don't want to speak for the applicant, council member, so I would leave that up to the council. I mean, that date is really a date that the council gets to decide if it's reasonable. July 1st, obviously, it's a holiday week, and it's a week away. Whether or not that could be satisfied. The previous date that council had directed staff to move up was from the August date, and that was kind of, discussion based on missing the previous deadlines, and so it was a tighter time frame. If council wanted to give them a reasonable amount of time, that's up to council. You could certainly do that. You could change that July 1st date.
But if we look back, what was the original date?
Well, yeah, there's the.
This has been far more than
Correct.
a week's notice.
Mark, could you clarify a couple things for the record? The landscape plan is in compliance with the agreement that we had in court.
Yes, Councilmember, it's exactly what was stipulated in the
Okay.
agreement.
And I have the question about the parking on Boundary. The agreement says that all parking will be diagonal parking. Jacob, if you could go to the page that has the newest site plan, there's several versions,
That's it.
and blow that up.
124.
And I'm referring down to the bottom right-hand corner in front. Yeah, there you go, thank you. Is that space that's over on the right-hand side part of the one just up from that? Clearly that is not, whoops. In that space, is that part of the boundary parking or part of the front?
We looked at it. They tried to, obviously get to 14 spaces because that was the max they could get to if they could fit them. We looked at the dimensions. I worked with their engineer. They don't have the space there to get multiple spaces. And so given that, they could turn that, they could angle that within that space and it would be angled. We didn't specify the angle, right? And I had gone back and forth with the applicant on what was the angle proposed of these spaces. The city has angled spaces that go anywhere from a 45 to a 60 to a 30. I mean, those are all kind of standards of practice within the angled parking spaces. In lieu of that, we said, why not make that just a singular parallel space and not try to do what would be considered
Well, and
probably not the same angle as the other
yeah,
spaces.
and Mayor Julie and I spent days in court going over that, and the clear intent of that was to have up to 14 diagonal spots. That's not a diagonal spot, nor could you consider that part of the front, because the front only has 5, or the
Correct, that's a
the 5
boundary.
spots. The front seems to be drawn in compliance with the court agreement. Would you agree?
Yeah, there's 5 spots that meet the dimensional standards
Okay.
of the city's
I'm
ordinance.
not
so, yeah.
comfortable with that non-diagonal spot because the thing clearly said diagonal. Now, if you'd shift over to the sales parking area, which is just a little bit over and up, in that particular area, there are 10 spots. Are those dimensionally enough on the current asphalt that he has over there to meet the codes that we have in the city?
Yeah, the spaces are, yes.
Okay.
The drive aisle is not, but that was not what was intended, so.
No.
Yeah.
So then from a clarification standpoint, the back has the correct number of spots.
Correct.
There is the 6 spots in the center, and I can do these from memory because I spent so much time in the courtroom talking about it. What is left to be accomplished then before the deadline, which he had originally had in January, would be the landscaping, which he had all spring to do, and the striping of the facility.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure I understand correctly.
Yep.
With that thought, to keep the discussion going, Mayor, I would move that we approve the site plan and the conditional use, or the interim use permit for Collision Corner, with the one change that non-diagonal spot is eliminated from the site plan. And then everything will be in compliance with the court findings and what we told the judge would happen.
Is that a motion, Councilmember?
Yes, it is.
DeLuca? All right, So there's a motion on the table from Councilmember DeLuca for granting the application for the IUP for Resolution 24-0624-04A with contingent upon the site, the diagonal parking spot being moved.